Mark Mix is with us, and we've spoken to him before. And he's with the National Right to Work Foundation. And we talked about the National Labor Relations Board and how they have tried to tilt the playing field. And I by the way, I'm pro-private union. Pro-private union. I am against slanting the rules to force people to be part of unions when they don't want to be. And I'm against public unions. Government employees unionizing against us. That's the two things that I want to make clear. And I think, Mark Mix, that you can share those and appreciate those sentiments.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. And if you're going to get carb-free pizza, smell of a lumberyard, and golf, I'm coming to visit you in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Northeast
Pennsylvania. Yeah, sorry, right. I'll be the wrong side of the state.
Oh, and the best pizza in the world up here. Now, Mark, you called about a specific subject. We dealt with a big labor, a big victory against organized labor, and the cabal that is forcing it upon certain people. Tell us what's on the plate today.
Well, Bob, we've got some interesting developments in the Starbucks unionization drive. You know, there's been a lot of media attention about Starbucks and how the baristas are organizing. And really the story has been a one-sided story about how aggressive union officials have been and how bad Starbucks is. And even though a couple of years back they were voted the most progressive employer in America and everyone was happy with them. And it was like, the days of Haught Ashbury in San Francisco and, with flowers and beauty. But now, because the unions are after them, Starbucks is probably one of the worst employers, according to the media. But the bottom line here is that when you look at it in perspective and you take this kind of media production about unionization, and certainly Joe Biden is doing everything he can, and the National Labor Relations Board, as you mentioned, is doing everything they can to tip the balance, tip the scale in favor of compulsory forced unionism, Bob. And that's what we oppose, is compulsory forced unionism. And unfortunately, that's part and parcel of federal law. But what's happening now is those Starbucks units that had unionized and voted for a union in about 12 months ago or 14 months ago are now coming back to the table and saying, you know what, we may want to get rid of these unions. And so we've been involved with a decertification, which is basically saying the workers want to throw the union out. In New York, there's two more, one in Buffalo, one in Rochester, New York, to the northwest of you a little bit. And these workers are looking at it and saying, what the heck did we get ourselves into? I mean, the first thing they had to do was pay forced dues to the union. That's part of the equation in New York and Pennsylvania, unfortunately. But they're saying, how do we get out? And we're now helping Starbucks employees try to get out of the union that they wanted to get into, or at least the media said they wanted to get into.
And there's nothing wrong with, again, it does not, I told you I'm pro-private unions. I don't have a problem with unionization in private industry. But now here's a case where the employees don't agree with it. And now they've got to go through a major process to try to decertify the union, which isn't doing much for them and is taking their money at the same time. Which union is it?
This is the Service Employees International Union. They're
what a horrible union. They represent, they will take your money, SEIU, and it's all about a left-wing lunatic agenda for them. They don't even care about the workers at all. Yeah. What a horrible union.
Yeah, they're the backbone of all this, the back office operation. The front group is called Workers United, or Starbucks Workers United, but it's funded and it's motivated by the Service Employees International Union. And you're right about them, Bob. You're absolutely right. They're primarily in the public sector, the government sector, if you will. They do some work in the healthcare industries, but this is a really interesting frontier for them because in this type of work, whether it be the QSR restaurants, the quick serve restaurants, or service units like Starbucks, they know that there's a revenue stream here that's really reliable because basically employees at these places don't stay around for that long. Yeah. There's a pretty significant turnover. So these workers pay an initiation fee to the union, then they pay union dues and fees, and then they move along after 8 months or 12 months or 24 months. And so the union's not on the hook for any kind of long-term benefits or representation. They just keep turning this over. Yeah. And, it's interesting, Bob, because the first unit that was unionized at Starbucks the SEIU actually hired what they call a union salt. He's an employee of the union. He gets a job under false pretenses at the company, walks in there and starts agitating for unionization. And literally the first person to start this was a Rhodes Scholar hired by the SEIU to go in and infiltrate a Starbucks and start this whole process. And, the other part of this, Bob, is really interesting. Starbucks has 15,974 stores in America, of which 9,600 or 9,265 are company-owned. The unions have basically organized 301 of these. They've lost 63 or 64 elections. They've withdrawn union petitions in 33. So this is like a 2% penetration. But if you read the headlines, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the boon for organized labor, when in fact it's more of a PR campaign than anything else. And now, as I mentioned, workers are trying to get out.
Well, I dealt with SEIU as county commissioner, and all they cared about was left-wing lunatic Democrat politics. That's all they cared. They didn't care about the workers. They didn't care about anything other than that. And I feel sorry for anyone who's in that union. We're talking with Mark Mix from the National Right to Work Foundation about the Starbucks situation. Well, tell me the role that the National Right to Work Foundation is looking to play in this drama.
Well, we actually are representing the workers at a Starbucks rotisserie in New York City. They came to us and asked us for help to try to get out, to how to navigate, to your point, Bob, navigate this kind of labyrinthine process for trying to get out. It's easy to get into a union, but it's very difficult to get out. And so what we've done is we've called on the SEIU and the Workers United here, Starbucks Workers United, to basically let these people have a secret ballot election about whether or not they want to continue allowing the union to speak for them in the workplace. What's going to happen probably is the union will file unfair labor practice charges saying that, Starbucks put them up to this, and it will block the election. But hopefully, with our attorneys involved, and we've had great success in this. In fact, Bob, right now, it's more likely that a union or union representative worker today in the United States is more involved, is a higher percentage are more involved in decertifying unions, the number of non-union members who are trying to get in. And no one talks about that, but it's a very interesting development. So we're helping workers, and we're reaching out to workers, and workers are reaching out to us to be able to exercise their rights about how to get out and protect their rights vis-a-vis forced unionism.
Well, Mark Mix, you keep fighting for what is right when it comes to employees. The National Right to Work Foundation does great work. Continue fighting. And as I mentioned last time, next time you have something come up, make sure you give us a call when you have the opportunity. We love to hear what you're up to.
Well, thank you, Bob. And if I can get carb-free pizza and smell of a lumberyard and golf, we'll talk more often, all right? You
better believe it. You can. All right. Mark Mix, National Right to Work Foundation, checking in with us on the Starbucks situation that many of you have heard tell, and we're getting the real story. Thank you again.
Appreciate it, Bob.
All right.